Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of the Council for October 2020. My name is Councillor Margaret Thomas, and as Mayor I will be chairing this meeting. I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on and share this message from the elders. Kaya kaya Burdias, Marman and Yoks, Nuna de Mort, Nitchikulan Nalamaya Kalamunda Budja, Yayi, Nandurapan, Wajulas Kulan, Jina, Nuna da Nitcha, Nunga Budja, Nunga Burdias Kura, Yayi, Burda, Cadillac, Burda, Kaya, Yunga. Hello, welcome to our leaders, men and women who have come to our place today this evening, and I'm happy to see you all standing on Noongar land of their leaders past, present and future. Thank you. The operations of Council and the agenda for this meeting are governed by the provisions of the Local Government Act, standing orders and rules of conduct. All matters of business listed in the agenda will be dealt with as separate items or decisions of Council. This meeting is also live streamed, and I would welcome those watching remotely. Thank you for your attendance and interest. Are there any apologies or leave of absence previously approved?
Through the Chair, we have an apology from Councillor Billich tonight.
Thank you. Public question time. We have a question from Mr. Jack McQuaid, and I would like to ask Mr. McQuaid to come to the microphone and ask your question.
The question is in regard to item 10.2.5 on this evening's meeting, road safety in Canning Road.
Sorry, Madam Chair, can we just have the resident's address, please?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind just stating your name and address for the minutes. Thank you.
Jack McQuaid, 29 Simons Drive, Roleystone.
Thank you. Please ask your question.
Does Kalamunda Shire believe that if the Main Roads Department assumes responsibility for Canning Road between Brookton Highway and Welsh Pool Road, that this would result in the road becoming safer for all users? I appreciate and commend the Shire for attending to the matter, but to date, main roads have behaved with cavaliering disregard for road users other than heavy trucks. Is there any evidence that the Main Roads Department has had a change of heart? And what are the prospects of the road safety audit being undertaken?
Thank you. Could I ask the Director of Asset Services to respond to that question?
Thank you. Through the Chair, and thank you for the question. The City is not in a position to comment on whether or not main roads and their assumption of the care and control of Canning Road would make it safer. That's not the purpose or the function or the desired outcome of this report.
Thank you. I also note the question from Mr. David Downing of Forestfield and the answer. Petitions and deputations. I have 2 deputations, and I would like to invite Mr. Stuart Burney to come to give his deputation. And Mr. Burney, if you would kindly state your name and address, and you have 10 minutes. And use the microphone, thank you.
Good evening, councillors, Mayor and CEO. Thank you for the opportunity to give my deputation. My name's Stuart Burney. I'm the owner and resident at 166 Sultana Road West, lot 308. My deputation is in relation to the closure of Nardine Close, southeast end, which was raised at a previous meeting where a report from the City was provided outlining what was required for the closure, and comments that were made by myself and our neighbours at 168 Sultana Road. I'd just like to apologise for not being able to attend the previous meeting where the report was delivered, because the road closure impacts my property mainly, and I just found out about it a bit late, and I got home a bit late, so I couldn't attend the meeting. So apologies that I couldn't attend. I just wanted to thank the City of Kalamunda for installing the temporary closure to the road. This was in response to a meeting that we had with several of the officers from the city and Councillor O'Connor, just regard to some dangerous hooning behaviour, or hooning, like burnouts, at the cul-de-sac. My house is, this road's been constructed about 1 metre from my house, and our main bedroom is 1 metre from the cul-de-sac. So, yeah, there was hooning and burnouts at like 1, 2 in the morning, which is getting pretty dangerous, and yeah, the family was a little bit upset. So the city responded really quickly, and we thank them for that, and they put up some temporary barricades to stop the traffic. So there were two things, two problems. One was the hooning, which was quite dangerous, and yeah, it was pretty confronting, but also the local community was using my driveway as through access, so they come from Sultana Road West, come down my driveway, which is 5 metres wide, like one-way traffic, and cut through there, and then cut through Nardine Close Extension, and I guess to get to Berkshire Road a bit quicker. We didn't have a big problem with this, but people started driving quite quick, and the sides of the driveway are quite highly growthed, so when you enter it you can't see the cars that are coming down the driveway. So I go up the driveway to get my letters, as well as the kids riding their bikes. It's just seriously dangerous that something was going to happen there. So the closure of the road has stopped that from happening, so that's good. We've put a gate on there as well, just to stop anybody coming down into the road itself, down our driveway, but we only shut that at night time, so just to stop any hooning or whatever. So yeah, I just wanted to support the city's recommendation to close it, and I thank them for listening to our concerns just regarding opening up the road at the stage when access for industrial development is required. So that was sort of noted that was not going to be a problem, and yeah, so I just really wanted to support the Shires and hope that, because it's made a big difference to our sort of living there, so we appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Burney. Councillors, do you have any questions? Thank you very much for coming to speak to us, and we're so pleased that you're happy.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
We now have a deputation from Carolyn Way Wittenbaker. I believe Mr. Ray Wittenbaker is going to speak, or you could both come. Thank you. We are handing out the photos that you sent. Before you start, would you kindly state your name and address for the minutes, and you have 10 minutes. And if you turn the microphone on. Thank you.
Good afternoon, councillors and Mayor. My name is Carol. My name is Ray. This is Carol. I'm very nervous, and I've put things down in bullet point. Carol and Ray Wittenbaker. We live at 20 Ocean View Parade, Goodsbury Hill. We moved into the area about 20 years ago. Our kids have enjoyed a great lifestyle up in Gooseberry Hill, and there are 6 blocks that were subdivided on Ocean View Parade, which connect to the east, which I gazetted to connect to.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
The 6 blocks were there was supposed to be an extension of Ocean View Parade to connect east to John Street and Gooseberry Hill. The extension was gazetted in 1947. It hasn't happened as yet. Last year we acquired another property in Gooseberry Hill. We're also business owners in the Kalamunda Shire.
Carol, can I ask you to move the microphone a little bit closer? Thank you.
We also have a business in the Shire of Kalamunda, so we're paying Shire rates on 3 properties. We employ residents of the Shire. We participate quite a lot within the Shire. Over the years, the zigzag has slowly become a bit of a drug depot, if you like, or now I'm nervous. We have problems with drugs. We have problems with hooning. We have problems with people parking at the bottom of our driveway, throwing their rubbish out. We have problems with people defecating and relieving themselves at the bottom of our driveway. So we really, really appreciate the fact that you closed the zigzag off. That's really helped us a lot. But we need to do more. The problem now is, instead of going down the zigzag, they're coming to the bottom of our road. Hence that photo I was showing. I was supposed to go out that night to meet my son and my husband, but there were 17 men there, young men, and 5 cars. I was too afraid to go out. Then 3 weeks later, my husband came home and he was driving just down our road. He noticed a young couple throwing rubbish out the car. Do you want to take over now?
Yeah. The young couple, well, there were a couple in the car and they were throwing stuff out the car, so I stopped my car at the bottom of my driveway, knocked on the window, said, do you mind just picking up your rubbish and buggering off, in that sort of words, and they abused me, told me where to go, and then they reversed back past me, and as they're reversing back, I turned my van around and I thought, well, if they know where I live, I'm in trouble. So I parked across my driveway and they saw I had my camera on, so they drove back up, and that's where this started happening. Then they asked me what I was doing. I said, well, I'm filming you dropping your rubbish, and I want you to pick it up and go, and I won't report you to the police or the Shire Ranger. At that point, the lady got out of the car. The lady got out of the car and she accused me of filming them of what they were doing. And I said, no, I just want you to pick your rubbish up and bugger off out of here. At that point, she grabbed my keys out of my car, because she was in line with my van. She threw them in the bush. I watched my keys go into the bush, and at that point, the guy struck me. And then we had a bit of an altercation. We fell down at the bush. I fell down face first. He kept punching me in the back of the head. And all I thought was he wanted the phone, and that's the only evidence I had of him. So I kept holding my phone, and he kept punching me in the head, and then he finally gave up, and they went. At that point, I had my phone with me. I called the police. I told them what happened. An hour later, they turned up. This is out the bottom of my driveway. And all I was doing is telling them to pick the rubbish up and go. We live in fear every day. We live in fear every day. We run the gauntlet from all the way along Larcell to our house. Every day there is cars parked on the side of the road, and we appreciate the police coming up, and I've spoken to the rangers, and they said, well, after 5:30, well, it's not really our issue, so you should call the police. The police aren't interested in coming to seeing people up there. It's been so much better with the zigzag closed off, but it can be better. And I don't think that we should be putting up with this as residents just to go home every night.
And the fact is, they're actually breaking the law. There's big signs up saying local traffic only. There's no parking. The Shire has done the right thing. They've put great big yellow line all the way around the road, no parking. It's single lane traffic anyway, so if there was any sort of emergency, you wouldn't be able to get in or out with people blocking it. I don't know, is there something you can do? Put cameras up, start fining people, maybe look at continuing the road round to where it was supposed to go, or just even getting the police to attend more quickly, because we heard only a few months ago someone getting beaten up and ended up in hospital and dying. If he had landed the wrong way on a rock, you've seen the photos, I mean, it is scary. You know, you don't hear of people normally getting beaten up at the bottom of the driveway or being afraid to leave the house because there's too many people parked there.
We've had four-wheel drives going through the tracks all the time, so that's right along a boundary. There's been 5 kangaroos been skinned and killed, which you probably already know about that.
Horrific, absolutely horrific.
They just don't care. A no through road sign or residents only are not a solution to this. And I'm coming to you to ask for a solution so we'll live like you guys. Just live like you guys. Come home every day. Every day.
We live in a beautiful spot and we appreciate it, and we
Yes.
feel very privileged, and we have no problem. We enjoy walking down the zigzag. Everybody should be
The
able
walkers and the bikes have been fantastic.
No problem.
There's
We've seen a lot more of them
so there's so
recently.
many more families using this because of it, and we're thinking that's fantastic. It's what we want, but it's there. Unfortunately, there's quite a percentage after 5:30 that are using this area for anything they want to do. We know that with Cleaner Frank by name.
I feel sorry for him. He's there all the time.
He's there all the time, and I actually showed him the picture of me saying, Frank, just do your job, don't get involved, just do your job, because I don't want this to happen to you. I'm a 59-year-old. I'm reasonably fit and active. Imagine if it happened to someone else a bit older or a lady. They don't care.
And just as a footnote, that person that attacked my husband is from the Shire of Coburn. The police acknowledged it. He's known to them, but nothing's been followed up, and that happened on the 1st of October. So we need something in place within our shire to protect our residents. Please.
Thank you very much for coming to speak to us. Councillors, do you have any questions of Mr. or Mrs. Wittenbaker?
Madam Chair, it's probably not a question. I've got a concern that we've got residents coming here, as they should, and this system is live streamed, where people can actually listen to what they're saying. They know where they live. They've given their address to us. I've got an issue with that. They shouldn't be able to give us. We shouldn't be asking for their address where they live while it's live streaming, because they've got problems now. It could exacerbate the problems. So I think we need to take notice of that.
We'll take that on notice. Thank you,
Thanks.
Councillor
But
Jardine.
look, I sympathise with you, and the sooner as we shut that place, the better. That's my view.
I have a question. Do you have any solutions? Like, what would you like to see? Do you have any idea what we could do differently? Please put your mic on, Del.
I'd like to see some sort of work committee going. Ideas that I've had is if the police can turn up regularly at that time, park at the first car park, they will catch lots of people coming back either drunk or under the influence of drugs. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. Cameras being placed up there that takes the licence plate, hit them in the pocket. So you're parking where you're not supposed to be parking, $100 fine. Ideally, to create another access so that they're not just... That would help in two ways. It would give a safer access for even John Street and Graham Road, as well as Ocean View Parade. They're just a few things, but I'm sure there's a lot more cleverer people out there that can figure things out a little bit better. But just to open the conversation, and please keep the zigzag closed. Yeah.
Thank you. Question, Councillor Sewell.
I just want to say I'm really sorry for what you've been through. I think that sounded pretty horrendous to me and unacceptable. So I think it's important that it's raised. A lot of the issues that you have raised tonight are state-based issues, and I'm just wondering if you've raised these concerns with your local Member of Parliament.
Not as yet. We thought the first port of call was the police, and we expected that they would follow through with it. And then we brought it to the attention of the Shire, and then we brought it to the attention of Keep Australia Beautiful Committee. In the event that nothing else happens, at least they'll get a $150 fine, which I think is appalling when you look at this. My husband had brain scans done. You know, he was lucky, very lucky, but the next person might not be so lucky.
Thank you. Follow-up question, Councillor Sewell.
So I would recommend, given that the issue that you've raised tonight is actually within the state jurisdiction, that it is raised formally if you're not getting a response in terms of a resolution for what occurred. But yeah, I do appreciate your feedback and giving us an insight into what it's like to live so close to the zigzag, and I thank you for your time tonight.
Are there any other questions, councillors? Councillor Blair.
Again, thank you for your deputation. Thanks for the phone call, Ray. When you gave me a call, you didn't finish your homework and send me through a bit of an update email, but that's all right. Appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, I came into the Shire the next day and
Yep.
made myself clear that's what was happening, and yeah, I thought it was for everybody to know and everybody not to approach. As bad as you think things are, you know, we've put up with this for a long time.
Yep.
And
All the councillors here are really well aware and really part of what has to be done at the zigzag to make it a family-friendly place and activate it rather than let it continue to deteriorate.
okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, councillors? Thank you so much for coming to speak to us tonight.
Thank you. Sorry for the drama, but you had to see it.
Are there any applications for leave of absence, CEO?
Through the chair, no, I haven't received any.
Confirmation of minutes. Councillors, you'll note that there is a following amendment. So with that amendment, can I have a mover that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 22nd of September are confirmed as a true and accurate record? Thank you, Councillor Ritchie, and seconded by Councillor Cooper. All those in favour? Thank you. On the basis of the above motion, I now sign the minutes as a true and accurate record of the meeting of the 22nd of September 2020. There are no announcements by the member presiding. There are some items for which the meeting may be closed, and we'll address those as we get to them. Disclosure of interest. Do we have any, CEO?
Through the chair, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we do. The first one is from Councillor Sewell in regards to item 10.55, Zigzag Scenic Drive, declaring an impartiality. Councillor Sewell has in-laws living on John Street, as referred to in the deputation. The next one is from Councillor O'Connor in relation to item 10.57, the COVID grants, declaring a direct financial interest because he works at the school that is a recipient of a grant. And then there's one from Councillor Giardina in regards to item 11.2, the Crystal Brook Concept Plan consideration proposed modification, declaring an impartiality because he has family members on that land in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. So we go to reports to council. Councillors, 10.1.1, adoption of the Community Safety and Crime Prevention Plan. Are there any questions? Councillor Boyd.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. It's more a statement, if I may, rather than a question.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. As a lot of councillors would know, the Community Safety Crime Prevention Committee was reinstated just shortly after I got on council in October 2017. And I just wanted to, obviously one of the first things that we started working on was this plan, and I just want to thank and acknowledge the Director of Development Services and his team that have been involved with this plan. And there's also 8 of the current councillors, which includes the 2 deputies over the last two-year terms that have been involved in the Community Safety Crime Prevention Committee. So I just wanted to acknowledge them and the staff for all the work that's been done to get this plan to where it is today.
Thank you, Councillor Boyd. And would you like to move this motion?
I most certainly would, thank you.
Can we have a seconder, please? Councillor Stallard. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 10.1.2, the Fire Hazard Assessment Plan. Are there any questions? Do I have a mover for the officer recommendation on page 20? Councillor Sewell, seconded by Councillor Blair. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Closure of south-eastern end of Nardine Close. Are there any questions? Is there a mover for the officer recommendation on page 25? Councillor O'Connor, and a seconder, Councillor Cooper. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The FOGO. Are there any questions? Do I have a mover for the officer recommendation on page 30? Councillor O'Connor, seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. The solar farm feasibility study. Are there any questions? Can I have a mover? Councillor Blair, seconded by Councillor Boyd, for the motion on page recommendation on page 36. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The parking concerns for Whistlepipe Gully and Mundy Regional Park. Are there any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Councillor O'Connor.
Sorry. Thank you. My question relates to some discussions that we had post the public agenda briefing, and it relates to the city's interaction with people who are illegally parking at this location. And my question is, has the city worked out a way to potentially assist visitors to the city in choosing a more suitable location?
Director of Asset Services.
Thank you, through the chair. There's been no further action on that pending that those issues would be rolled up in the work if the council determined to commit themselves to a working group. Those matters of directing visitors to better locations would be wrapped up in that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Follow-up question, Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question might be to the Director for Development Services on whether it's possible for, in the interim, for the customer safety officers to provide material that outlines other locations that are of a similar nature to this one when they're interacting with the people who are parking as an interim method.
Through the Chair,
Director?
thank you for your question, Councillor O'Connor. The City is currently working on some information that can be provided with any potential cautions or the like that are issued, and that information is being developed at the moment, and we're happy to consult further with you as that's being progressed.
Councillor Sewell, you have a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question relates to potentially considerations for the next budget, whether the City would look at potentially exploring options in terms of having, for instance, like a shuttle bus which leaves from the City of Kalamunda, which would prevent the parking issues that we're currently experiencing, and instead of punishing people for it being such a popular spot to visit, that we actually support them in their visitation, and whether that's something that could be considered for the next budget.
I'll direct that question to the Director of Asset Services.
Thank you. Through the Chair, that could be considered. It would also probably need to be considered in light of the working group issues and indicative costs, which I dare say will be quite a bit.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Giardina.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Falls Road embayment parking, 180 grand. I notice 61. Financial consideration. There are no financial implications arising directly from this report. The following projects can be considered for funding in the operating and capital works program. Obviously, you're going to be bringing it up at that time. What is the length of coverage, drainage that you're going to, piping that you're going to be putting through? I was there during the weekend having a look. Could you tell us what length you're covering?
Director?
Thank you. Through the Chair, I might just defer that question to our Manager Asset Planning, who did assist me in preparing that part of the report. He may have some indicative or first blush views of that.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, councillors. Apologies, I don't actually have a figure for the length along Falls Road. We are also planning some work on Lewis Road of about 120 metres length, but apologies, I don't have a length for that. I'll take that on notice.
Thank you.
Councillor Giardina.
Can you please send us an email when you've got the information?
Yes, certainly.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions, councillors? Do I have a mover for the officer recommendation on page 49? Councillor Blair, seconded by Councillor Stallard. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Canning Road Road Safety Investigation. Are there any questions? Do I have a mover for the officer recommendation on page 59? Councillor Sewell, seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. Is there going to be any debate? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Oh, no, not. Sorry, thank you for letting me know. So Councillor Giardina, Councillor Sewell, Councillor Stallard, Councillor Boyd, Councillor Cannon, Councillor O'Donnell, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Blair, Councillor Ritchie, Councillor Thomas, and against Councillor O'Connor. Motion is carried. Thank you. 10.2.6, a community appointment to the Kalamunda Environmental Advisory Committee. I understand there is an amendment to this. No, there isn't. Oh, the wrong one, sorry. Are there any questions? Is there a mover? Page 63, Councillor Ritchie, seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So the next one, the City's Economic Development Advisory Committee. I understand there's amendment to this motion. Councillor Sewell, would you like to outline, are you moving this motion with the amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move the motion with the amendment. Would you like me to
Yes,
speak
please.
now? Yes,
Note your amendment.
I appreciate the opportunity for a revisit of the terms of reference, which were originally drafted in February of this year. I note that the terms of references have been made to accommodate specific elements which have been sought as part of the terms of reference. My amendment merely wishes to expand on that by ensuring that there is adequate representation across the entire city of Kalamunda from all wards. It's a particularly important issue given that COVID has impacted all wards within the city of Kalamunda, and we need to work with all of the businesses, and we need to get perspectives from all elements and all the very varied elements of business, and also working towards development across the board.
Councillor Sewell, yeah, thank you. Do we have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Giardina. Is there going to be any debate? Sorry. Oh, we need to nominate 2 councillors. So,
And Chair, I've got a question.
yes?
Sorry, it might impact what happens next. So, nowhere in the recommendation does it say about coming from different wards. So it says it in the rationale, but it doesn't say in here. So is the intention to include that in the recommendation or not?
Just a point of clarity.
I'll
if I
go
may.
back to the mover.
Yeah, so it's an opportunity for there to be representation from all 4 wards. If that can't be achieved, then I think it's important that we have varied aspects and perspectives as part of the amendment. But I'm happy to change it specifically, making reference to representation from each ward if that assists.
I think it's your motion, Councillor Sewell, so it's up to you. Perhaps we could ask if anyone would like to nominate for this committee. Councillor Giardina and Councillor Sewell would both like to nominate. Are there any other nominations?
Madam Chair, if there's someone from the North Ward, I'm happy to step down. But
Yeah, I understand there is no one from the North Ward. I was going to be on this committee, but I want the committee to be fantastic, and I thought it would be better if I wasn't, because, yes. So there's just the 2 nominations then.
Madam Chair, I think you should be on that committee. You're the Mayor for the City of Kalamunda. I think this is it's going to be a wazzer of a committee, and I feel that you need to be on there. That's my...
Councillor Ritchie, you would like to say something?
Yeah, I'm just not sure we're up to this, because I wanted to speak against the amended
We're
motion.
going to do that.
Okay.
So I was advised that we need to nominate the 2 councillors. We've got a seconder. That seconder will speak shortly, and then we'll go into debate. So I'm happy to be on this committee. I feel that I have a good business background. So who would the other nomination be? Which one of you? Councillor Sewell?
I'm already deputy, so I'd be happy to withdraw as deputy and be representative for a southeast ward.
I'm happy to be a deputy, Madam Chair.
Okay. So we've got part 2 is appoint Councillor Thomas and Councillor Sewell as members of the City of Kalamunda's Economic Development Advisory Committee. Councillor Sewell, would you be happy to add another point 2A, that Councillor John Giardina be the deputy? Is that appropriate, that we add that?
Through the chair, there's a couple of ways you can do it. Under the Act, given the mayor, you are the mayor, you can go onto a committee and that would automatically expand this committee to 11, therefore allowing Councillor Giardina to be on it if he so chooses, or otherwise, yes, you can go down the pathway of making him a deputy. You do have 2 options here.
Councillor Giardina, would you like to be on the committee or a deputy?
Madam Chair, I think the thrust of Councillor Sewell's motion here, or the amendment, is to have 1 from each ward. But I honestly.
So you're happy to be a deputy?
Yes.
In that case, Councillor Sewell, are you happy to add point 2A, that Councillor John Giardina be the deputy to this committee?
I'm happy for that to occur, Madam Chair.
So perhaps we could get some wording for that. So do you wish to say anything else as the mover, or have you Yes.
I'd just like some clarity on what happens to the previous councillors and deputies, because they seem to have not been mentioned at all.
Through the chair, the amendment expands the committee to 2 other councillors stay as appointed, and these are just 2 additional councillors, so they still
The previous
stand as
deputy
well.
stays as well.
We're just expanding the number of members and deputies. So.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Boyd? Are there any other questions? We'll go back to the mover just to finalise your... Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just refer to the rationale which is in the amendment. This particular committee has broad-based relevance across the entire city. The topic being explored has links with external agencies and stakeholders, as well as significant advocacy. It makes good government sense to have a councillor from all areas participating. The Kalamunda district is very diverse. Each area has a different focus. For example, North West Ward has a strong light industrial base and older suburbs. South West has special rural older suburbs, as well as new high-density subdivisions, whereas the South East Ward has gentrified suburbs like Lesbirdie, as well as rural with a range of rural pursuits and tourism industries evolving. North Ward is diverse. It's a diverse residential area with a strong focus on tourism and small business. Having broad representation on the Economic Committee will ensure that issues relevant to each of the local areas can be brought to table and provide a balanced approach across all industry segments within the city. If the goal of the Economic Development Committee is to support industries and increase employment opportunities, then all the different industries across the entire city need to be considered, and a councillor from each district area is best placed to bring local knowledge to the table. This is a similar approach to the Crime and Safety Committee, and I believe that economic development of the city is such an important topic that we should have greater councillor representation. I look to you all to support my alternative recommendation, my amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the seconder, Councillor Giardina.
Yes, Madam Chair. Look, I wasn't at council that night when this was done. The original recommendation, original motion that was put forward, I wasn't here. So, but I knew then that that there should have been at least 4 councillors, 1 from each ward. That makes sense to me. I think we've got a big list of projects that are going to be done over the next few years through Kalamunda, and hopefully with the tourism people also, which I'm chairman of the tourism committee. So I think it's very important that we do have representation from the top of the hill also. You know, I'm not taking anything away from the current councillors that are on there, but I do believe that we need to have at least a couple from the top of the hill. You know, we live here, and I think our community would ask for that. So that's why I would support it.
Thank you, Councillor Gina. Speaker against? Councillor Ritchie.
Look, I have no problem with either the Mayor or Councillor Sewell on the committee. My issue, I guess, is that I have great faith that Councillor Boyd and Councillor O'Connor would have done an excellent job. I'm just not quite sure why we need to expand it to 4. My other concern, I guess, is that this is an advisory committee to council, and it's almost as if we've got almost equal representation from councillors and business, and that worries me a little bit. I would like to see, if the committee was going to be expanded, that it would have more community representation on. We have our say, we have all of those things coming to council, and it just concerns me that, you know, that the balance is, although there's slightly more community people on it, but I just feel that could be seen to be, you know, councils having what their say is, as opposed to it coming to council where we all vote on it. So I feel that it should stay as true, and I have great faith in Councillor Boyd and Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you. Is there a speaker for the motion? Councillor O'Donnell.
I guess I can understand people's perspective, but I guess it's an opportunity to build capacity in the area where council has the opportunity to build what we think is additional skills and experiences Obviously, there's a point in time where we can make changes to terms of reference. We have done that to other committees. We have made changes to this terms of reference and made variations to it. I think there's a point in time where sometimes messaging, I think from a ward perspective or from a committee perspective, sometimes some of the messaging can get lost between the committees and the council. And I think it's important that if we have more people at the table, then there's an opportunity to make sure that the messaging is clear. It doesn't necessarily also mean that just because councillors are at a meeting that they all are going to think the same way, because again, we all come to council with very different ideas and perspectives, therefore we come to a working group or a committee with very different perspectives. So I would welcome that opportunity to have 4 councillors serve on the committee, and I will move that.
Thank you. Speaker against? Councillor O'Connor.
Madam Chair, just I want to propose an amendment that deals with a confidential attachment. So I don't know how to do that at this point in time. Without going into detail, I wanted to add someone to the...
So perhaps I could ask advice.
Go behind closed doors. It's a confidential attachment, and then decide what you want, Councillor O'Connor. So you can
Yeah,
move
sorry.
behind. Okay. Do you want to move it
So,
to the end?
councillors, would you be happy just to park it here? We've had a mover, a seconder, we've spoken, we've had people have debated. We can just park it here, then go behind closed doors further down. Is everyone happy with that approach?
Sorry,
Thank you. So we move on to item 10.3.2, the Les Moody School Community Library. Are there any questions? Is there a mover for the officer recommendation on page 75? Just one moment.
Normally when we appoint committees, we have to appoint a particular person and not a position. That's what the legislation says. It appears that the names have been taken out of this recommendation since I saw it last.
There was a name on the one that I saw.
Can you put the names in, please, Sean?
STY.
The names were in there before because we've all seen them, so we'll just wait and add that.
No, that's not right. STY. STUYT. Brittany cover. Hey? Story. Brittany cover.
Sorry, through the chair, you're looking for the name?
We're looking for the spelling of the surname.
That's right, STUYT.
I don't actually have it.
It's
sorry,
correct.
from PAB. So Andre Stuyt, STUYT.
Thank you. So it's correct. It's on your screen and it's correct.
Yeah.
Brittany cover.
Thank you, Andre, for coming to sort that out for us. Okay, so now we have the officer recommendation correct on your screen. Is there a mover?
No, there's a third one. If you're putting the names there, then it has to be the Kalamunda Branch Librarian, Rosalie Foss.
Okay. Is it now correct?
Yes.
Everyone got it on their screen? Can I please have a mover? Finally. Councillor O'Donnell, seconded by Councillor Stallard. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Carried unanimously. The Public Art Master Plan. Are there any questions? The officer recommendation is on page 80. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ritchie, seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. 10.4 4.1, the community engagement. We have an alternative motion foreshadowed by Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Ritchie, without going into debate, could you just outline your alternative motion and then we'll go back to the officer recommendation, and if that's lost we'll go to the alternative motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I think the rationale that I have put on the sheet that you have in front of you spells it out pretty clearly. But the alternate one is to delay going to any kind of consultation until such time as we've got clearer clarification of what the new Act will look like and how many councillors there's likely to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Sewell?
Just seeking clarification in relation to the changes of the Act, what the implications are in terms of how a mayor is elected. I'm not clear. I think I need clarity on that. I'm not clear as to what the implications are when it comes to mayor-elect.
CEO?
Through the chair, at this point in time, all we've got to go on is what the report from the appointed panel to the review, the findings, and this was silent in regard to popularly elected mayor. It generally discussed the mayor being elected by council occurring every 2 years, and it discussed that in the findings. However, whether those findings become part of the review of the Local Government Act is yet to be seen. We haven't seen any of those legislative changes, but there was no recommendation or no indication that there would not be popularly elected mayors.
Thank you.
In addition to that, I think what Councillor Ritchie is alluding to is there is a proposal to determine the council number of elected members based on population, and with respect to Kalamunda, that would end up being somewhere between 5 and 9. So I think that was one of the reasons why Councillor Ritchie proposed this alternative motion.
I have a question. Does anyone know when this will happen?
Well, the indications I've had, it will take up to 2 years at the earliest to get the legislation through. It seems to be coming through in dribs and drabs. So I know recently they've done some amendments around CEO employment. That's come through as a draft. It's out for consultation. So when the components come through, it really is up to the Department of Local Government to release matters as and when they choose.
Follow-up question, Councillor Sewell.
So that being the case, that it may be reduced to 5 to 9, you would still have a mayor. It's just the method of how that mayor is elected, so I'm still unclear as to what the correlation is.
Manager.
Trying to read between the lines, I think it's a matter that there's been some discussion around council as to whether we should also change the numbers on this council at the moment. If we go for a popularly elected mayor, there's a bit of a discussion about whether we should expand it with and add the mayor to it, or do a reduction to include the mayor. So that's what has been in the discussion. So I presume that's why Councillor Ritchie put it forward, that because there's going to be a reduction.
Perhaps Councillor Ritchie could explain her intention rather than the manager.
My clarification was that it looks likely, and we don't know, you're right, Councillor Sewell, we don't know exactly when this is going to be, but if we did end up with somewhere between 5 and 9 representatives, and we now expand the council to 13, if that was the intent, I just feel that we're going to add additional cost, and within probably 2 years we're going to have to change that, and the council that comes after us may in fact not support that decision. I'd also, without going into debate, I'd also make the point I have not received any pressing notion from anyone to go ahead with a change to how the mayor's elected.
Councillor Ritchie, I'm not going to allow you to discuss that. And I'm going to be very strict tonight, councillors. The motion before us is about the mode of election of the mayor's survey, not the mode of the election of the mayor. So when you go into debate, please keep your debate to the survey and the activity schedule, attachment 1 and attachment 2, or I will pull you up. So this isn't, we're not debating whether the pros and cons of how we elect the mayor. We've already passed a motion to go out to community consultation, and now we're bringing you back the survey, and this motion is about that. So I'm going to be really strict on that. So do we have a mover for the, if there's no more questions? One more question?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm just curious. There was a survey, I think, done in 2015, 16 was there? So from that, what came out of that?
2016 survey, that was a general survey to survey the community, whether they wanted to be a city or a shire. We also asked a question in that survey, amongst other questions, if they wanted a popularly elected mayor. The results of the popularly elected mayor came back at around 64%.
Right.
Wanted, is that correct, Manager? Around 64%? 60?
Yeah, from memory, and it was a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
but we have pulled up recently. I actually thought it was about 61.7%, but I'm happy to get some clarity
Anyway,
for
it's
that.
above 60% that wanted to have a popularly elected mayor. At that time, the council didn't choose to do anything with the survey. It was set aside.
Yeah.
And then 18 months later, our Councillor Townsend brought the notion back up that we should look at the city status issue. And then also we worked on the city status issue for most of 2017, and that went through whilst the other matters were just left aside.
Are there any more questions?
Yes,
Councillor
thank you.
Stallard.
A point of clarification for me, I may have it totally wrong. I thought that the previous motion was to ask for the CEO to put together a questionnaire to go out to the public, but it didn't actually say that we were to send the questionnaire out in thing. It was coming back to us to look at, to give the final approval to go out. It wasn't a direction to the CEO to draft it, to send it out.
Correct.
I think there's a little bit of difference in that interpretation.
CEO?
Sorry.
This tonight?
Yes. Yeah, no, it was just that the comment earlier was that
So
you,
tonight,
yes,
my
it's-
understanding is it's to agree to the survey and the schedule.
Yes, that's what
Yes.
the point was, not that we agreed it in the previous motion, that's all.
Yeah, the previous motion was asking our officers to prepare it, and they've done that, and we've had a look at it, and this is to agree to it.
Yes, that's good. Thank
Okay,
you.
so are there any more questions? Do I have a mover for the officer recommendation? There's no mover. This officer recommendation will lapse, and we'll go to the alternative motion. We've got a mover. Is there a seconder for the alternative motion? Councillor Giardina. Is there going to be any debate? Do you wish to say anything more, mover?
Really just saying that we've already done a survey, we do have that result, and I'm not quite sure why we need to do another one if we already have the answer from that. And I think that I've already given my rationale for the change. I don't think there's any particular reason to do another survey at this stage, and I'd like it delayed until after such time we've got much greater clarification about what the new Act looks like and exactly how many councillors and whether a mayor is going to be elected every 2 years or every 4 years. All the balls are still up in the air, and I'd like clarification before we go ahead and make that decision, or make the survey and then make a decision.
And I'll go to the seconder. Do you wish to add anything?
Not really, Madam Chair. I think that Councillor Ritchie has summed that up pretty well.
Okay, I just want to make a comment. I brought this motion to look at the elephant in the room, if you like, or the elephant in the community in regards to the many questions that I was getting. And I have my answer now. My answer is that we took it to council and council has spoken. So I thank you for that. I don't mind either way. I just wanted to address that issue, and I have done that. So we've got a mover and a seconder. Is there going to be any debate? We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Giardina, Councillor Stallard, Councillor Boyd, Councillor Cannon, Councillor O'Donnell, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Blair, Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Thomas, and against Councillor Sewell. So the alternative motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. We now go on to the draft monthly financial statements, 10.5.1. Are there any questions? I'm going to move this recommendation myself. Page 92, mover Councillor Thomas, seconded by Councillor Ritchie. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. 10.5.2, we have some questions that you have the responses for, and I thank Councillor Ritchie for putting them in and allowing all councillors to see the response. Are there any more questions? If not, I'll ask for a mover for the officer recommendation on page 98. Councillor Stallard, seconded by Councillor O'Connor. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Rates debtors report. Are there any questions? I'll ask for a mover for the office recommendation on page 103. Councillor Boyd, seconded by Councillor Thomas. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The budget review. Councillors, there's a memorandum about the budget review. I think you all have a copy. Spirit of the Valley information, History Village information. I'll give you a chance to find that. And are there any questions about this item? Question, Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just could the staff provide an update on their discussions around the charges to the accessing the video at the History Village?
Who would like to take that? Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you. Through the Chair, the information is actually contained in the memo, which I'll draw your attention. So the film cost $5,000 to produce. The schools are offered a downloadable link to the film, which is available for a week period. I think that's primarily it. So it was a $110 fee for the video, and the $110 per week is for that particular part to go up and be continually viewed by the school. So $5,000 was the cost.
Are there any other questions? Councillor O'Connor, a follow-up question.
My question is, what are the implications if I propose an amendment that removes the $110 fee from the schedule?
So through the Chair, I guess you'd have a misalignment in the sense of people are paying a fee for going through the gate, and those that, if schools decide that they're not going to send the kids and they don't pay for the video, then obviously there's a difference there, and it also means the city loses out on recovering its cost of the $5,000. I'd also point out that one of the reasons that the video was done was because the visitations to the History Village total around about 3,700 people between July 20 and October 20, and we are booked out until 2021, and that's primarily because the tours are only offered in line with when we've got staff on. So our staff numbers there accommodate doing those tours on a morning only, so they're not done full day. And so if we were to try and provide a quicker turnaround for people to get onto those tours, then you would need to throw more staff resources at it, and the video, of course, is the alternate for doing that.
Are there any more questions? Do I have a mover for the, Councillor Boyd, a question, or you want to move?
Question, please, if I may.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and I do apologise for not asking this earlier and for potentially putting somebody on the spot. Just in the report, the memo, the reinstatement of events, is it possible to provide a breakdown and a possible quick overview of what the festival part of the Christmas event is, please?
Would the manager like to take that question?
We're looking to potentially split about 50-50 between the Christmas lights and the various community events that would become the festival. So the festival tends to be a series of community events. We actually put out for some partnerships with various community groups. Usually it equates to about $5,000 per event, and we're looking to bring the cost of the install of the lights down slightly as well, but generally speaking that does sit around that $25,000 mark.
Follow-up question, Councillor Boyd.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering, has, given that response in respect to the cost, has a comparison been given to the pros and cons of the Christmas festival reinstatement over the movie nights reinstatement?
Manager?
Through the chair, in what regard?
The pros and cons as to which would be, obviously,
Yes.
given the previous response, they're about the same cost.
Yeah.
Why one over the other would be selected?
So the rationale for going with the Christmas festival, because it is something that the entire city benefits from. Everyone sees the lights, and you know the community group can be engaged. Sorry,
We're talking about the festival aspect of it, not the lights, because the lights and the festival are two separate entities, which was just discussed. So why we're doing the festivals, which the manager just indicated are a series of events, versus the movie nights, which are also a series of events.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering why one over the other.
Oh, because it was all put together as one program. The Christmas Lights and Festival was submitted as a single program of work.
I'll just go to the Director of Corporate Services.
Sorry, in addition to that, the other, I guess, imperative for the first term review is the decision needs to be made on a Christmas event before the mid-year review. So subsequent events we can discuss at the lead up to the mid-year review. But this is clear that if it's a Christmas one, and it's either in or it's out, and if it's out, then we need to make that call as part of the first term review.
Another follow-up question?
Yes.
Roughly what time of the year does the movie night series usually start?
Manager.
The movie nights take place in January through to March.
Okay, are there any other questions? Councillor O'Connor.
Madam Chair, I'd like to propose an amendment. I know there's no movie yet, but...
Would you like to move this
I'm happy to
motion
move.
with an amendment?
Yes.
What is the amendment?
The
please?
amendment is to delete the $110 History Village video subscription fee. That's it.
Okay, so we've got a motion with an amendment. Does everyone understand the amendment? Is there a seconder for the motion with the amendment? No. So we'll go to a mover for the motion without the amendment. Do we have a mover? So the motion is on page 111. Councillor Sewell and seconded by Councillor Blair. Is there going to be any debate? I'll go to Councillor Sewell. So you've moved the officer recommendation on page 111.
I don't think any further comments required. I'm happy to adopt the officer's recommendation as it is.
Thank you. Councillor Blair, do you wish to add anything? No. We'll go to a speaker against. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It relates purely to the video charge, and my point of view is that charging $110 to try and recover costs from schools with hundreds of kids in each school is really, in my view, really not the way the city should be dealing with people who want to come to our history village or experience what we have to offer. Tonight, later in the agenda, we're potentially going to give $5,000 to lots of people who are going to benefit groups ranging from 50 to 150 people on average. Deleting this $110 charge to recover $5,000 will allow, we've already heard there's 3,700 kids who access this facility each year, so potentially thousands of people will have free access to find out what we have at Kalamunda, and it may be seen that we're, well, I mean, it could only be seen that we're trying to make money off people who want to find out what we've got here, and I'm just blown away that we would penalise people, kids in our area, and charge them and make them pay and restrict access to something that we are really proud of. And look, I just can't support it. So if there's no support to remove it, then I'll just vote against it.
Okay. Is there a speaker for the motion? Councillor Stallard?
Sorry, thank you. Through the chair. I just want a bit of clarification in here.
Is this a question?
Yes, it is. It's a question about clarification on the amount. It's got weekly downloadable education program film and associated worksheets per week, 110. If a school or a group wanted to download it on a different weeks, different times over that, each time it's downloaded, it's $110. Is that the implication, or are they going to get a one-off access to it and they can use it as a resource, and that's it? And that's as we do in a lot of schools. I'm just asking, what is it? I'm just a bit confused.
Question to the Director of Corporate Services.
So through the chair, that fee is for a period of a week as stated.
Councillor Sewell, is this a question? Yes.
Yeah, it's just a follow-up question to Councillor Stallard. I'm not a teacher or a principal, so I won't pretend to understand the function, how a school functions, but I would imagine that the school would purchase it for $110 and then show it to up to 1,000 students, essentially, within that week, if they manage their timing right. Have I understood that incorrectly?
Who would like to take that question on? Let's go to a principal of 20 years, Kalamunda Senior High School, to answer that question. Councillor Ritchie.
I'll be honest to say it's primarily directed at primary schools rather than, you might have it at year sevens. Be unlikely to go through 1,000. It depends primarily on what you're doing at that point in time. So you could be doing geography at that point in time, but when you get to the history section and the local history section, that's when you're likely to download it, and you'd probably be showing it to more likely to be 3 or 4 classes rather than 1,000 kids. You'd be unlikely to do it across the whole school. I'm a bit like Councillor, I have some issues with it. But on the other hand, it's a resource that's been produced. I suppose my point would be, once we've recouped the $5,000, do we then stop charging? That would be, I guess, would be my follow-up question. But would you show it to 1,000 kids? Unlikely.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Blair.
Yes, my biggest issue is that, as we spoke about at the public meeting, is that we are only running this, the village half days, and we need to be running it full day. So surely we can note that in our upcoming budget that we've just started, and then if we can engage more school children to attend rather than watching a video, I think is a lot better outcome for kids. So that's why,
That's
that's
added
my
a
point.
whole new thing to this, Councillor Blair. So let's just note that comment, Director of Corporate Services, and we just need to go back. Councillor
Can I
Giardina,
just
you
have
have a
a
question?
question answered, please? Look, I used to be a delegate from council on the History Village, but I used to hear from them all the time that they didn't have enough volunteers. Is that still the case, why they can't have it open, say, for the day instead of having half days? Is that still the case, that they can't struggle to get volunteers like everybody else does?
I just think we're getting right off this motion,
but
and
look-
perhaps we could ask that question at the end when I go round and say, councillors, do you have any other questions? So just park that there, Councillor Giardina. Let's go back to this motion. We are up to, we've had a speaker against, a speaker for. I would just like to speak for the motion. I think we're not charging children $110, we're charging a school $110 for a lot of children to see. So I support the motion. It might only be 5,000, but 5,000 here, 5,000 there. I'm an accountant, don't forget that. I think recouping this at $110 per school is not an excessive amount of money, so I'm speaking for the motion as it is. Is there a speaker against? I'll go back to the mover. Do you wish to a right of reply? Do you have any comments, Councillor Sewell?
Just wish to echo those comments, Madam Chair. Punishing children, I do, as the mover of this motion, I do take offence to that terminology, not punishing children to watch it. We're looking at $33 per class, based on, 3 classes watching it. That's $1 a child, essentially. I think that's perfectly reasonable.
Okay, we're going to put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Sewell, Councillor Stallard, Councillor O'Donnell, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Blair, Councillor Ritchie, Councillor Thomas. Could somebody please tell me how many that is? 7. The motion is carried. Thank you. Sorry? Oh, sorry. Against. Thank you. Councillor Giardina, Councillor Boyd, Councillor Cannon, Councillor O'Connor. Thank you very much. The motion is carried. So we move on to 10.5.5. I understand there is a conflict of interest for this motion from Councillor Sewell.
Correct. Councillor Sewell has declared.
Thank you. Are there any questions first?
I'd like to move this with a minor amendment to...
Thank you, Councillor Blair.
I would like...
Can you outline your amendment?
I would like the date to be moved out to May the 31st to allow a 6-month period rather than a 3-month period, with the knowledge that we've got 1,300 surveys to get through. We've got a very busy and short December. We've got Christmas and January, of which we don't sit. So coming back in the February would be a very short term for us all to absorb what we need to be doing.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion with the amendment? Councillor Giardina. Are there any? I'll just go back to questions to make sure there's no questions. Do you have a question, Councillor O'Donnell?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, regardless of which motion goes ahead, what process the council or the city needs to do to re-communicate? Do we need to, obviously, because we don't
I will go to the manager for that, but my Let's just have a minute while they discuss this.
50 plus what? 50% plus what? Sorry.
Okay. My understanding is that the 6 months is just, that Councillor Blair has suggested, is just to get through all of those, the survey and come back to us, but I will ask the manager to respond to Councillor O'Donnell's question. Yes? Yes. Oh, who would like to respond to that?
Thank you. Through the chair, if I understand the question correctly, obviously through our social media and our other media channels, we would advise that the temporary closure has been extended to the date nominated by council, pending the receipt of the report on the matter.
Thank you. Follow-up question?
Yeah, I just actually meant before we had to apply to the minister or something. Do we need to do that?
Through the chair, the decision to not undertake the closure under Section 350 of the Local Government Act, that's a council process we have followed. We don't have to do anything further in terms of advice or getting approval from Main Roads in that regard. Thank you for that question.
Okay, so we've got no more questions. We've got a mover and a seconder. Sorry, now we'll go to the mover.
I have another question, and I would like to hear from HR on what the process is once the outcome... HR. Once the 1,300 questionnaire outcome, and what steps we're going to take over the next 4, 5, 6 months to get
Who would like to take
Through the chair, I'll take that. We're planning to have a workshop on it. Once we've got the results, we'll bring back a workshop probably to the strategic retreat now in February, and we will workshop that with the council, and there we'll lay out the next moves once we've seen the data and we've had that workshop.
Great, thank you.
Right, final. Are there any more questions? We've got a mover and a seconder. Does the mover wish to say anything else?
No further.
Does the seconder wish to say anything?
Unfortunately, I didn't actually hear the date that Councillor
31st of May.
Okay.
So it's 6 months instead of 3 months.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, is there going to be any debate, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Giardina, Councillor Sewell, Councillor Stallard, Councillor Cannon, Councillor O'Donnell, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Blair, Councillor Ritchie, Councillor Thomas, and against Councillor Boyd, Councillor O'Connor. The motion is carried. 10.5.6, the Bushfire Advisory Committee. Are there any questions? If not, I'll go to the officer recommendation on page 120 and ask for a mover. Councillor Giardina, seconded by Councillor Sewell. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 10.5.7, we have a conflict declaration
from Councillor O'Connor.
From Councillor O'Connor, who is leaving the room. Councillor O'Connor has left the room. Councillors, do you have any questions? Councillor O'Donnell, did you have a question? No. Do I have a mover for the officer recommendation 126? Councillor O'Donnell, second Councillor Giardina. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Perhaps someone could invite Councillor O'Connor back. Councillor O'Connor, that motion was carried unanimously. So item 10.5.8 has been moved to next week, which you all had notification of. So we go to motions of which previous notice has been given. And the first motion is 11.1, the container deposit collection sites. It's moved by Councillor Sewell. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Sewell, would you like to quickly outline your motion? Even if there's no debate, I would still like you to tell us about it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As outlined in the rationale, the container deposit scheme was adopted on the 1st of October. It has been very well, it's been welcomed by Western Australians on the whole, and there certainly has been a significant amount of support. At present, there is only one location between the North Ward and the South East Ward for this particular scheme. So my request is that a report be prepared for council consideration on the feasibility of establishing a container deposit collection refund station or a community donation point at Wollaston Transfer Station, which is similar to what Shire Mundaring has done, and also to encourage community sporting clubs to participate.
Thank you. I'll go to the seconder. Councillor Ritchie, do you wish to add anything?
Nothing other than to support the notion. I think the more depots or places there are around the city, the more likely people are to use them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.2, we have a declaration of interest from Councillor John Giardina, who is leaving the room. So this motion is moved by Councillor Margaret Thomas. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Cooper. Councillors, I think it's very well summarised here. I think we all agree that we need to give our residents plenty of time to have their say. So that's all I would like to say. Would the seconder like to add anything? No. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? If not, I'll put this motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Perhaps we could ask Councillor Giardina to come back. And we move to item 12, questions by members without notice. And I know Councillor Giardina has a question he would like to raise. Yes, about the question you asked before, which I didn't allow you to ask.
It was basically regarding the History Village.
Yes.
Whether they're still down on volunteers. So I know most organisations are. Is that why they don't open on full days, or they just open half days? Or I remember when, as I said last year, when I was the rep, the rep for the council at History Village, they always used to say that they were scarce on volunteers. So I just wonder whether that's still the case and what we can do about it.
Who would like to take that answer? Director of Corporate Services.
So through the chair, I'd need to take on notice the specific question about volunteers. What I'll say though is that the hours for which those tours are run obviously aligns with paid staff resources, and there needs to be an appropriate level of staff per visitation. I would need to provide what those numbers are individually, but certainly that they require a higher degree of supervision, so that's part of it, but I'll certainly happily provide by way of supplementation information on how they're tracking with the volunteers.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper may have some other additional.
You like to ask a question?
I'm the current rep, and from what I've heard, no, they've got a lot of volunteers, so they're really happy with that, but it is the paid staff that with the supervision of the children going through, that's where the issue is. So.
Thank you for enlightening us. Councillor Stella, do you have a question?
Yes, it's a question in a sense. So I was asked on the weekend if council could convey its thanks to Doug and to Brett for the proactive way they're dealing with the parking on Falls Road. And they asked, could we please convey it to those two gentlemen in the department for the way that they've speedily sort of moved it on.
Thank you. So conveyed. Thank you, gentlemen. We're still in questions by members without notice. Councillor Sewell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I received an email yesterday from a Bickley resident in relation to I'm not quite sure of the correct wording. I know that the manager for PR would know this. The little Quenda box on Haynes Street, I'm not quite sure how else to describe that. Is there a possibility for it to be moved into locations where we have cafes which are functioning, which could utilise it, because apparently it's in front of a vacant cafe at present?
Parklet. Director of Asset Services,
Thank
I
you.
think we're talking
Through
about
the chair, I
park.
think Councillor Sawler is referring to the parklet at the top of Haynes near Railway. We did receive also that email directly to the administration. I've initiated with my team a request to understand what are the implications of shifting it in terms of cost and feasibility, and I'll report back to councillors when I have some further information in that regard.
Madam Chair, my understanding is that we actually either sold it or gave it to another local authority, that it was going. That's what I heard from officers a little while
Can you
ago.
confirm that, Director of Asset Services?
No, I cannot confirm that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pity.
Councillor Boyd, you had a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have several questions. My first question is to the Director of Corporate Services, just because it's in his area. But it's asking, can the Manager of IT inquire into the costs and options of an appropriate application that can be utilised by staff and council to receive all PAB and OCM agendas, including attachments electronically in the one document. The premise of this is to eliminate printing of all these documents that we all have on our desks. We're trying to be environmentally friendly and we just are not. We've all been provided with devices, and to keep printing stuff is just not viable. I am aware that there's programs that can enable amendments to be produced in real time, which gets synced to your device when you open it up, and the applications also enable us as individuals to go in and make notes and do highlighting, and so you would receive the agenda item, and then the attachments would be directly after them, etc., as it goes through. We would note that sometimes when we receive a short agenda, we receive that just in a PDF or Word format, but there are applications where it happens for large documents. So just ask if that can occur. That's my first question.
Director of Corporate Services.
So through the chair, there's a lot of stuff in there, obviously, that you've referenced, Councillor Boyd. The short answer is yes, we can certainly investigate it. If you would be so kind as just to flick me via email some of the commentary around those issues, and then we'll happily investigate them.
Thank you. Question 2, Councillor Boyd.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering, can the Director of Asset Services please provide assurance to Council and to the community that the second attempt to resurface Welshpool Road East recently on the Les Moody Hill occurred at no extra cost to ratepayers from the initial contracted quote?
Director of Asset Services.
Thank you. Through the chair, I can confirm there was no cost to the city.
Question 3, Councillor Boyd.
Thank you very much. This is two questions. I'll ask the first and then do a follow-up. Can the Manager of PR please provide to Council a copy of the matrix that's used to decide what mode of engagement / advertising is used to determine items seeking public comment?
Manager.
The answer is yes. The one thing I would flag there is that provides options. It's not a kind of this, it must be this way or that way, but it provides options. I'm very happy to provide it to all councillors.
Yeah, thank you. And a follow-up question. Is it possible to add the Engage Kalamunda link to the tabs on the front of the city's website, because it is very hard to find? We have all sorts of things on that front, on the website, the front thing where it's got all the links, but the Engage Kalamunda one, which I think would want to be having as one of our focal ones, isn't there?
Manager.
Thanks very much. We'll investigate that.
Is that all your questions? Councillors, we're still on questions without notice. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I might have missed if this was asked before, so I'm just going to ask it for clarity. Once the schools have paid their $5,000 debt via the parents sending money to school, will the city stop charging for that video? Was that raised before? And what
I
was
asked the
answer?
question, there wasn't an answer.
Okay.
Director of Corporate Services.
The answer is no, it won't stop charging. It'll be in the schedule of fees and charges.
Thank you. Questions without notice. I'll just come back to you in a sec. Are there any more? We'll go back to...
Sorry, follow-up question.
Councillor
based
Sewell.
on Councillor O'Connor's question. Could potentially that the funds raised, once that 5,000 debt had been paid, could that be utilised for acquiring additional staff for the History Village?
Director of Corporate Services.
Through the Chair, the answer is yes, subject to budget considerations, obviously. If there's a requirement to introduce staff, that has a budget consideration, and we would deal with that through budget.
Thank you. Councillor Giardina, then you, Councillor Boyd.
Yeah, Madam Chair, during the week I was asked whether I knew of phone calls that are coming through to the city, whether people are having difficulty getting through our office here, because some people can, some people can't. Do we know, is it a common occurrence, or is it getting fixed, or
Through
what's
the
actually
Chair,
happening?
I was made aware of that also by Mr Robinson. He
Yep.
rang me, so the IT managers looked at it. Apparently there's been an issue with one version of iPhone 7,
Right.
and people with that iPhone through Telstra are having difficulties, so my IT people are now trying to have a look at that. It's not widespread, but there are pockets of it with that particular technology apparently, so it's being looked at, and the IT department will be going back to Mr Robinson to investigate his issues.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Boyd, did you have another question?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just following up on the question from Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Sewell, could somebody advise how often the schedule of fees and charges are reviewed, and are they always brought to council prior to being set?
Through the Chair, yes, they're a component of the budget process. Once a year we set the fees and charges, and they are distributed to council, and you are always given the opportunity of a 1 or 2 week period to go through and check them. So that happens every year in the budget process.
We have another question without notice. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is, in the last couple of weeks there was an issue down in High Wycombe South where there was a fire safety pop-up event planned, and some of the residents, or actually all of the residents, didn't get their or get a letter received in the mail in time, and it was significantly late. So could the city advise what the position is, or how we're going to deal with that?
Through the Chair.
Director of Development Services.
Through the Chair, thank you for your question, Councillor O'Connor. The city is aware that there were delays with Australia Post in regards to that letter being received by landowners in that area. The city did issue the letter on or around the 9th of October, and there were delays with Australia Post, and we're currently considering options in response to that specific matter that's arisen as a result of the delay due to Australia Post.
Through the Chair, Manager, would you also like to say something about this matter?
Thank you very much, Madam CEO. Just to flag that this is actually quite a significant matter for the City of Kalamunda. The current service level agreements that we have with Australia Post, that Australia Post have across the board, say that we can expect mail to take at least 5 to 10 working days. So that's currently what they advertise. This case is only slightly outside of their SLA in actual fact, so it was more than the 10 days. But the reason that it raises such a significant issue for us is because the city corresponds with ratepayers for a number of significant matters via post. In this case, the event was a community pop-up, and it was designed to be a relatively feel-good event for community members to find out about their homes. But we use Australia Post for rates, we use Australia Post for dog registrations, we use Australia Post for a number of really significant things, and we will need to factor in the fact that we can expect letters to take at least 3 weeks to arrive in households. So we are actually currently reviewing all of our communications and any use of Australia Post in respect to this matter.
Thank you, Manager. Councillor Boyd. Councillor Boyd, then Councillor O'Donnell, I did see you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a follow-up question on the Manager of PR's response there. Notwithstanding the current SLA with Australia Post, has the city received any further correspondence recently from Australia Post? I know as a resident I have, and I'm sure everybody else has, which outlines the adjusted service that Australia Post is providing to residents, which is certainly not as they used to. So I'm just wondering if Australia Post has officially provided anything to the city advising that their SLA will be altered in any way.
Manager.
Thank you very much for the question. We're aware that they have advised residents that they will only be delivering twice per week, is my understanding. I'll need to confirm what official advice we've had, but we are actually in the process of writing to Australia Post to see what we can do, if anything, in this regard, because, to be honest, they've got a little bit of a monopoly.
Councillor O'Donnell.
I guess just the problem about the post is not going to be an issue, it's going to be resolved. So I guess the question begs about how we use our online systems and how we use our emails. I would obviously like to look at utilising email as the preferred, unless people say they really want to have a post. Perhaps we look at charging people for post. And of course, text messaging. I mean, I get text messages from all my utility service providers, so I just can't see why we can't instigate looking at these things. Obviously there's risks involved, but I would like to look at these services.
Manager of PR, would you like to comment on that?
Thank you very much. The City currently has a tender request out for a customer relationship management system which closes on the 8th of November, and we'll deal with some of those issues. I will note that we do already have email services that are available and some SMS. For things like rates, we have seen increase over the years, but probably not as high as we would like in terms of choice of uptake for that. So there is some more work to do, but certainly the CRM will make considerable difference.
Are there any more questions without notice? It's your last chance, councillors. Okay, we move on to questions by members of which due notice has been given, and there are none. And there is also no urgent business approved by the presiding member. So now we're going to close the meeting to the public and move back to item 10.3.1. So can I have a mover that the meeting be closed? Councillor Blair, seconded by Councillor O'Connor. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Behind closed doors was item 10.3.1, and there was an amended motion to add a further person under confidential attachment 2, and the motion was carried. And with that, I declare the meeting closed at 8:35 p.m.